Joining Carl today is guest host Bernadette Heier as they discuss the evolving world of off-premise dining, where Shake Shack takes flight with Delta, Starbucks rethinks store design for the digital age, and are restaurants getting tired of tech? That's all ahead on this week's Digital Restaurant.
Good morning. Welcome to the Digital Restaurants. And as ever, I have a new special guest. I'm joined by Bernadette. Bernadette, if you don't know, is the managing editor at Food on Demand. And we have a podcast first today, folks, because it's the first time we have a professional broadcaster on the panel. So Bernadette brings with her many years in the multimedia space. And so forgive me if I'm feeling a little nervous, a bit under pressure here. But how are you doing, Bernadette? You feeling good?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
No, absolutely. Really thrilled to have you here. I'm always a big fan of everything you and the team at Food on Demand are pulling together. I'm looking forward, maybe a little later, we'll be able to talk about the upcoming event as well. But we have lots of news, as ever, to cover. And you're kindly taking on the first question this week. And one of my favorite movies, I don't know whether you've watched it yourself, is Planes, Trains and Automobiles. And when I saw two of the articles on Food on Demand this week, I thought, well, this is a perfect time for me to frame this one up in the sense of, is off-premise and the future of off-premise maybe in the sky and on our freeways? I didn't see any articles about trains, but if you can find a way to build that in, that'd be great too.
I love it. Well, thank you for the tee up, Carl. Yeah, so this week on Food on Demand, we dove into some new perspectives of off-premises for restaurants, and starting with Shake Shack expanding their partnership with Delta Airlines. And so that started already in December, kicking off from Boston International Airport. And now it's expanded to New York LaGuardia Airport, Atlanta International Airport, LAX, and Seattle. And it's for first class flights for no longer than 900 miles. But why does that matter to us? The restaurant world is always evolving with off premises, and it's no longer just about delivery, third party delivery like a DoorDash or Uber Eats, or takeout or drive-through. Now, as we see, restaurant chains are looking beyond traditional avenues, like in the sky. I'm sure trains as well. And we talk a lot about drone delivery or sidewalk robotic delivery, and that's always tied to the brick and mortar. So it's interesting to keep an eye on where restaurant chains are eyeing next, including airlines, and we'll also get into some in-car ordering as well.
Yeah, the thing for me, everyone has a certain appreciation about what food in the air is, and unless you are blessed perhaps with flying first class and on some of the transatlantic flights out there, it's not always the best experience. Sorry, Flying Food Group, you do some great work, but the idea of bringing in like brand recognition into the food that we eat when we're flying, I think is a really smart move. And of course, it's, if nothing else, it's great brand awareness.
Right.
But it's something that allows people to be able to have some form of alliance on every form of travel that they're experiencing, not perhaps just in their cars. When you think about the way in which people are now incorporating what I once called dashboard dining, the idea of being able to order while driving, and the way in which a lot of the in-car technologies now are connected. Are you excited about that? Are you seeing any exciting kind of areas of interest for you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm about to talk a bit about SoundHound getting into betting big on cars, but I also just spoken with Mavi on my way, Cynthia Mavin. I just interviewed her, and they're big into in-car ordering as well. And so, many people see that as the future. You're driving in your car and you can just talk to your dashboard. And I think the goal is to really have it be able to recognize you as a regular, so you don't have to say much, like, hey, I'm a regular, order what I ordered last time, and just go right through the drive-through. So certainly something we're seeing more restaurants be interested in. As mentioned, the next article, SoundHound AI, which does drive-through AI and call to text ordering AI for restaurants, is now partnering with Chrysler, Hyundai, Kia, and Stellantis. And essentially for that in-car ordering. So like I said, I think it's a big push when it comes to upselling and personalization, but it is still early days.
Yeah, I think, well, we know the big problem out there is transactions, right? And so if you're available to order in more occasions, I think you're going to have the opportunity of being able to do that. And if the car manufacturers and what Cynthia's up to at Mavi can help, then that's a great kind of place, I think, for restaurants to consider themselves and how they're appearing in front of their customers on different points beyond their web traffic and perhaps their use of their smartphone.
Right. Yeah, it seems there's always a new avenue now when it comes to the omni-channel reality for restaurants. All right. So up next, Carl, is tech fatigue real? We'd love to hear your insight.
Yeah, you can imagine what I'm going to say. Look, in today's fast-paced restaurant industry, the adoption of new tech is often seen as a pathway to enhance efficiency and customer satisfaction. But there is this growing sentiment out there, and I really enjoy the article here from Joanna about tech fatigue among some operators, because I think in many ways it's leading them to reassess their investments into tech. And I don't think the phenomenon about this is about it rejecting innovation, but I think it is emphasizing the necessity that technology does demonstrate clear returns on investment. The article referenced McDonald's recent decision, I think it was last year, where it concluded its partnership with IBM on automated order taking, the AOT project, which started, I think, all the way back in 2021, which was about trying to incorporate voice AI technology into drive-thru. And of course, despite the potential benefits, the systems faced some particular challenges around order accuracy, with what I read was something like 85% accuracy, which is definitely way short of the desired 95% benchmark. And so they ended their test, and they, of course, have said publicly that they're still committed to ensuring that they implement strong technology, but only when it meets the stringest of performance standards, which, as a responsible franchisor, you're going to want to have them to say, right? Franchisees buy into a franchise because they want to have the confidence that the franchisor has done their due diligence on new investments. But it's not just McDonald's that was talked about in this article. The Autocado machine, which we talked about here on the show, Chipotle started testing in the summer of 23. Well, that's now back inside their innovation center. It's not customer facing anymore. And they're looking into things around process optimization, and seeking better levels of capability in what they call the stage gate process. Jeremy Julians was referenced in the article, my good friend over at Custom Business Solutions, and he was saying that operators are now testing new technologies and giving them less time to assess them. So they're testing fewer times and also giving them less windows of time to test. And Joanna's article goes on to touch on just different operators that are conscious, I think, of the cost of technology, but also losing the art of hospitality as well. I think for me, a few things stood out. The tech's got to work. It's got to clearly demonstrate a tangible, empirical way in which it can ideally grow top line or address a core operational problem that creates cost or waste within the restaurant operating system. Now, it's no wonder to me why kiosks and drive-thru AI got so much attention last year, because many of the success stories showed higher basket values, they showed labor efficiencies, they showed accuracy improvements, which of course are leading indicators to the lagging indicators of customer satisfaction, sales, and profit. So while the article quotes McDonald's decision to point out their decision on halting voice AI, there was other articles this week which were talking about their CIO saying they want to overhaul 43,000 restaurants to reduce the stress on the team by thinking about interconnected kitchen equipment indicators, predictive analytics, and its ability to almost preempt downtime, a little bit like we were covering on the last episode about digital twins. And it's doing that with Google Cloud, where it's bringing that kind of compute power to each location, which is enabling better processing and analytics on site. So you've got stories like that. And then also in the UK, McDonald's big competitor in Burger King, Deliverect, has introduced this thing called Pulse Sentinel, which is showcasing how technology can really directly address operational challenges. And what this particular tech is doing is it's identifying where there's downtime on the delivery platforms. In the past, where we've talked about the way in which many restaurants will actually manually throttle their restaurants, as in they're too busy inside the restaurant, and therefore they turn off their off-premise ordering. But guess what happens? They forget to turn it back on.
Yep.
So I think what Deliverect has done here through this new product is helping companies like Burger King in the UK across their 321 locations actually now address that, so that way they can switch these things on more automatically and therefore resume connectivity 4,000 times each month. That type of thing has a very clear, tangible benefit. It can affect revenue and can really improve the operations of a business. So yeah, maybe there are certain instances, I think, where you could say there's a level of tech fatigue, because we certainly come through a period over these last few years where it's been intense and everyone has thrown a lot of things against the wall. But where you've got technology that can align itself with operational goals and demonstrates that tangible ROI, it can alleviate the pressures of tech fatigue and at the same time drive the industry forward. So I'm still bullish, Bernadette. How about you? What do you think?
I'm definitely still bullish. I feel like the wave of technology being integrated more and more into restaurants is almost just the beginning still, it seems. But however, like you said, there's no one size fit all solution. And something I hear a lot from operators is, like you just mentioned, not every tech solution works best for them. And the tests sometimes show that. I interviewed Seven Brew, who said, we have no interest in doing any voice AI, anything like that. Then I interview other companies who are super bullish on it. So I think, as mentioned, it's just a matter of partnering with the right company and figuring out what best works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on. My goodness, if I had $1 for every time I mention this company right now,
Yeah.
they are in the news all the time. I wonder, have been on the acquisition path again, but this time it's a media company. What is this about?
Yeah, so Wonder's in the news again, this time acquiring Tastemade, which is a media company that essentially puts together food content. They have 160 million followers on social media, and they do things with celebrity chefs, recipes, and kitchen products. So certainly a way for more eyeballs to be viewing what Wonder is up to. But it's interesting because, as you mentioned, so this is led by Mark Lohr. He launched Wonder, and essentially it's a network of food halls that also do delivery. And his goal is to have kind of a super app that combines everything from meals to groceries and everything in one place. I keep an eye on this since they also acquired Grubhub recently. And that's very interesting given, Grubhub's struggle with market share in the US, particularly with DoorDash and Uber Eats. And also the news that Grubhub just laid off 500 employees amid this Wonder acquisition. So it's certainly interesting to see what will happen. However, they continue to grow and open new locations. I believe they are in 38 now with plans to open 90 by 2025. So yeah, certainly something we're keeping an eye on. They have 1.6 billion in funding. So I think their goal here is to just dominate the food industry world, but we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, they're certainly focusing on the Northeast, I think, initially, but this kind of touches, I think, on that first article you were mentioning, right? In the sense of not so much planes and cars this time, but how can you have your brand be accessible and tangibly touchable almost in every essence of how someone might be interacting with their smartphone?
Right,
And I don't know whether you've ever looked, and I don't know whether you've got an iPhone or a Samsung, Bernadette, but you can have these things where you can actually see the amount of time you spend on different apps.
right.
And the app that I spend the most time on right now is YouTube, right?
Mhm.
So you think of the way in which YouTube content from a media perspective can come there. If that can connect through and then obviously very seamlessly links towards the Wonder platform, you're actually enabling people to think about food, get excited about food, get brand connotation, and then directly link through to the first party ordering platform that Wonder's serving up.
Right.
That I think is allowing them to be able to probably, get certainly more of their celebrity chef aspects into customers' consciousness, but also it's probably the most profitable pathway too.
Yeah, definitely important for brands to think about social media and the way consumers interact and find, like you mentioned, YouTube. And I think this Tastemade partnership, like I said, will bring many more eyes to directly order from Wonder. All right, the next article is, are restaurants rethinking store design for a new transaction mix? Carl, will kick that off to
Mm.
you.
Yeah. Look, it's not taken long. Obviously, Meredith's no longer on the show, and I want to stress there's no insider knowledge on this one, Bernadette. I'm being a good journalist here, right? But the thought really that came to mind here was when this article touched on obviously their new CEO's views on how the Starbucks store design is going to need some change. And the reality of restaurant operations in general today is that on-premise and off-premise transactions are competing for space. They're competing for staff attention, and they also compete in a weird way with customer attention. And I think that's really prevalent with Starbucks, right? The surge in digital orders, especially for companies like Starbucks that have majority of their orders done through a digital interface in some way, are happening now through pickup. And
Mhm.
that's therefore needing to reshape the way in which these store designers, these restaurant designers are thinking about how should a restaurant, how should a Starbucks, how should any entity that has both on-premise and off-premise transactions interact with their customers. So it's no longer just about adding a pickup shelf, right? It's actually the very flow of the restaurant and how that's being reconsidered. Starbucks, of course, is one of the latest brands to openly talk about rethinking their store design, and they're acknowledging the kind of customer experience can feel disjointed. I think all of us that are regular Starbucks customers would probably say, yeah, that's right. And of course, the challenges for them is where you've got walking guests trying to enjoy their coffee while mobile pickup orders flood the counter, or even where someone that is a walking guest is feeling like they're almost a secondary guest because a lot of the attention is being driven around the mobile pickup order channel. So when CEO Brian Niccol, of course, formerly of Chipotle, which I think is fair to say has had its own challenges in this space, has made it clear that as digital orders grow, so too must their approach to store design. I think this is exciting and kind of interesting to show that they really are thinking differently about the way in which Starbucks needs to address this. And that could be more power outlets and seating to encourage more in-store visits. But I think it's also a more thoughtful separation of pickup and dine-in areas. And that, I think, is really where they're trying to address this concept of friction, right? Where one type of transaction disrupts the other. And we've seen this playbook before, right? Think about how drive-thrus evolved back in the 60s, where it took them probably over a decade, I reckon, to accommodate new consumer behaviors. You had the early days of drive-thrus weren't what we see now. And of course, this day and age, we're seeing double lanes, we're seeing mobile order pickup spots. And of course, we mentioned voice AI ordering as well. So it does take time for an operating system to refine itself. Now, the same iterative process is happening with mobile pickup and digital order fulfillment. You've got Wendy's with their, I think they call it global next gen stores, right? Which is separating digital orders and drive-through in a way that tries to prevent those bottlenecks. You've got Portillo's and their restaurant of the future, where off-premise and dining guests barely cross paths, thanks to a pickup focused layout. Even with Taco Bell's Go Mobile concept that was built around the need to recognize digital orders and the need for their own space. That's why we're seeing designated lanes and shelving and even different production flow inside the kitchen, which of course, again, Chipotle are well known for. But I think the main thing from all of this is that pickup is booming. We know delivery has been expensive over these last few years, and consumers are liking it because delivery fees are frankly still quite high. And we heard from Olga last time on the show that customers are price sensitive, and many see pickup as that kind of middle ground between delivery's cost and drive-through speed. But the problem is that pickup is still a clunky experience at many brands, and orders are delayed, or guests aren't knowing where to stand, or even worse, employees don't even realize that someone's arrived. So I don't know. For me, the solution is if pickup is the biggest driver of digital orders, it's really time for brands to own that experience as deliberately as they have with their dine-in or their drive-through guests. And so when I see Starbucks thinking about how their store design needs to be smarter, it's certainly not going to be the last brand to do this. The brands that are going to get this right are going to optimize their layouts for both revenue streams. They're going to make pickup seamless without degrading the in-store experience. And I think what we'll see in time is more geo-fenced order flows play into this. I think we'll get to a place where customers are almost incentivized around waiting maybe for 10 minutes more on orders that when they are perhaps 10, 15 minutes away from the restaurant itself, as we see with our Amazon transactions, right? Sometimes I was ordering something for a nephew the other night, and it's like, well, do you want this to arrive on Wednesday, or do you want it to arrive on Thursday? And if you do, we'll give you 5% back.
Right.
That's a really compelling type of thing that we can learn from a somewhat more advanced industry. And we're seeing that come through today, right? With the likes of Chick-fil-A that direct the customers towards the most operationally optimal channel of engagement, whether that be through the drive-through lane or the store pickup. So I don't know. I think the takeaway on this is for the tech providers listening, tech that improves throughput for both guest types without operational trade-offs, that's the real game changer. I think that the same is true for the service physics types of vendors out there that are helping address order flow pathways and minimizing the amount of steps taken by employees in the process that they undertake. I don't know. My prediction is, in the same way as it took drive-through a decade to evolve into this kind of multi-lane AI-powered systems that we see today, we're going to see digital pickup optimization as the big next battleground for restaurant real estate. And I think the brands that really rethink their store layouts, they're going to be setting the standard really for the industry in the next decade ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, you definitely hit that all on the nail there, Carl, and exactly what I'm thinking as well. I think about some of the digital forward mobile pickup prototypes we see being released. You mentioned Taco Bell. In Brooklyn Park here in Minnesota, there's a Taco Bell DeFi, which has conveyor belt, 2 levels, and conveyor belts bring the food down and the car goes through. So there's just a fast handoff. And I think about KFC. They opened up their spin-off Saucy, which is a more Gen Z tailored digital more lanes to pick up format. So definitely seeing something as well as smaller prototypes being opened as well as pickup that becomes more of a driver than in dining. So yeah, I think you hit that on the nail.
Awesome. All right, well, let's finish it up by talking about Agentic AI. I mean, a subject close to my heart. And of course, Taco Bell have been talking a lot about their Byte organization and their approach to it. What have you been looking into on this?
Yeah, so I've been following Agentic AI as that seems to be the new talk in the AI world with restaurants. And so Yum Brands, the parent company at Taco Bell, has unveiled an AI-powered restaurant manager, essentially, with the aim of bringing the Agentic AI capabilities to fast food. And so essentially, this means that the agentic AI can do more complex multi-step tasks with minimal human intervention, and up from ChatGPT, if you will. And essentially, apparently, they're working on a demo called Byte AI Restaurant Coach. And it's a virtual assistant that helps managers track attendance, plan shifts, and even suggest things like adjusting hours or things on running the drive through. And I don't believe it's fully ready yet, but it does show that Yum Brands, one of the world's largest franchise operators, sees AI agents as possibly part of their future. And for us, who follow AI well, and I know you can definitely speak to this, Carl, I think it's a sign of a bigger trend where businesses are starting to use AI for maybe more than just some of the basic things that we talked about, such as taking orders and answering customer questions, but to actually help in decision making. And so we're definitely eyeing some of the big brands that have the budget to test this.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating space. Ultimately, those folks that have never worked in the industry, I think, never truly appreciate the value of the hustle of the GM, the way
Yeah,
in which the GM really has to hustle in those moments of crisis, whether it's people not calling in, and so therefore they've got half a team, or certain points of crises which they're having to solve for in the moment. And the more we can get to a place where we can support them with decision support systems that can help them be able to make the right decisions based on all the stimuli that's happening around them, the better we're going to be to create a better working environment for them, because that ultimately is going to create a better place for them to be able to coach and to train and to create a better experience for our restaurant employees. And if they have a better experience, then our customers and our guests are going to have a better experience too. So there's a knock-on effect of a lot of this, but the bigger organizations clearly are talking about it. It does take a bit of investment to get there, but the bigger thing also is that whole thing around data, right? You've got to get your
right.
data to a place where you can understand the stimuli, that you can understand the way in which different things are affecting a restaurant in different ways at different times. So the restaurants that have got a hold of their data are then in a much better place to be able to take advantage of the agentic AI workflow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Something I'm definitely hearing operators are eyeing is, and also as you mentioned, for training capabilities as well, with new employees coming on board, and Gen Z employees, for example, in the younger generation.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to talking about this very subject at Food on Demand
Yep.
in May. Can you tell the audience base here about Food on Demand, why they should attend, and how they can get tickets?
I would love to. Yes. So, Food on Demand, our annual conference, is once again happening in Las Vegas at the Bellagio this year, May 5th through 7th. And Carr will be hosting an awesome AI related panel. But I really encourage any operators listening or tech people to attend. It's 3 days of editorial driven panels that really focus on the world of restaurants relating to off premises operations, technology, attracting and retaining the digital guests, and really just how to scale your business in this omni-channel reality. So we have a bunch of really interesting speakers and panels coming from a wide variety of small to large operators, as well as tech vendors and industry leaders, and who can really share their perspectives on how they're adapting their business to excel in this new reality. And it's a great event. It's super fun. We are kicking off a great keynote conversation that dives all into AI. We'll have sessions on robotics and just basic ways to improve your digital ordering, and much more.
Awesome. Well, you're biased, but for me,
I
as
am
an impartial,
biased.
for an impartial person, for me, it's one of the best places to get insights about the industry. So, if you want to go somewhere where you're not going to necessarily get all the sometimes the corporate polish, but actually you're going to get some very tangible ideas and thoughts about how you can progress your business, specifically around off-premise channels, it's definitely the show to go to. So, I look forward to seeing you there, Bernadette. This is going to be a great year. And if you haven't yet got your tickets, what's the website address for folks to be able to do that?
Yeah, just foodondemand.com. You can go right there and click on our conference tab and register on the page.
Great stuff. Bernadette, thank you so much for joining me today on the Digital Restaurant. If people want to reach out to you, get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm just be higher at foodondemand.com. You can find that on the website as well. Happy to connect with anyone. And this was super fun, Carl, and I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank
Take care.
you.
The Digital Restaurant Podcast is available for you to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Watch us
Rate us and subscribe to The Digital Restaurant on YouTube and follow along on all our social media digital restaurant channels. Thanks for listening.